Hello, happy Wednesday to everybody out there. I'm Lance Lysowski, the Sabres beat writer for the Buffalo News, coming to you from my home office. Very exciting, I know. A brief break in the schedule. We're at the All-Star break. The Sabres don't practice again until Thursday. Their next game is Saturday at home against Calgary. Then they hit the California three-game road trip starting Monday in LA. Really have been looking for different ways to interact with readers throughout this season. For those of you familiar, before the pandemic, and I think even somewhat during it, I was doing Facebook Lives to take questions, and the changes with Facebook and their whole live interface, it became just unsustainable. It was clunky, and I really wasn't receiving any of the questions. So put it off to the side and really wanted to do something along these lines where you've read my mailbags in print and online, I'm sure. For that, those of you who have not, you can always submit a question to me on Twitter or through email, lysowski@buffnews.com. I collected some questions here on Wednesday. With the trade deadline coming up, the Sabres just signed Dylan-Cozens to a new contract. I'm going to try to do these mailbags in video form sometimes as well. This could be a weekly thing. This could be a twice weekly thing. I hope that it gets to that point. I want to really gauge the interest. If this is a way that you guys want to absorb content, listen to the Sabres, I would recommend just putting this on, listening to it as a podcast, as opposed to just watching me sit at my desk and talk about your favorite hockey team. But nonetheless, I think we can dive in right now and get to some questions. If you submitted some on Wednesday and I'm not answering them right now, don't worry. Maybe they're folded into another one that I'm going to answer, or I'll get to them either in written form or hopefully the next video one. So please, feedback is always great for these. Let me know what you think, and let's do it. Okay, so Freddie Zacher. Freddie, I very much apologize if I am mispronouncing your last name. Please let me know if that's the case. Freddie wants to know, is the Vancouver Canucks, Brock Boeser, a player that the Sabres could be eyeing ahead of the deadline? Now, when it comes to the Sabres deadline strategies, I know that the exciting player that everybody wants is Timo Meier. Jacob Chychrun is another guy. But when you consider what Kevyn Adams might do before the March 3rd deadline, think about the preference to not deplete the prospect pipeline or the draft capital throughout this organization. Kevyn Adams and his staff have built that up substantially over the past 2 years. They're not going to want to drain it for a player who's a pending unrestricted free agent or someone who's going to require a very expensive long-term contract. He'll do it for the right price. Just when it comes to the trade deadline, we know that acquisition cost gets pretty substantial. If in case you missed it, look what the Islanders had to give up to get Bo Horvat, center from Vancouver, last week, in a very substantial deal. So when it comes to Brock Boeser, Freddie, this is a perfect player to ask about. He's 25 years old. There are 2 years remaining on his contract. The cap hit is $6.5 million, which fits in perfectly with what the Sabres have available, especially in this window. Remember, they're not only going to be paying Tage Thompson and Dylan-Cozens more money, but Rasmus-Dahlin is going to be getting a substantial pay raise next summer. Owen Power, Peyton Krebs, Henri Jokiharju, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, they are all restricted free agents in the summer of 2024. So this is going to get very expensive very quickly. And as much as the salary cap ceiling projections, which is, of course, the amount of money a team can actually spend on the cap for each year, the initial reporting a few months ago is that it's going to increase by $10 million over the next 3 years. Now, if you're in Kevyn Adams' seat, you can't bank on that happening. So you have to be pretty wise on how you're handling this from a financial perspective as well as what you're giving up in the trade. When it comes to Boeser, if you really wanted to capitalize on these 2 years where you're not paying Owen Power a ton of money, you're not paying Jack Quinn or JJ Peterka what they could eventually be earning, you could really take advantage and get a player like Brock Boeser, who is a 4-time 20-goal scorer, can fit in perfectly on the wing next to Dylan-Cozens. Character standpoint, he's the type of guy that I think would fit perfectly in this room. He's having somewhat of a down year. He's got 9 goals in 9 goals and 30 points through 42 games. That is definitely not what you would expect from that player and his skill set. Remember, though, the Canucks are kind of a mess, to put it kindly. A lot of their players, JT Miller, Quinn Hughes, their production has been impacted by all that has gone wrong in Vancouver this season. So with Besser, still a very good player, 25 years old. This is the type of guy, Chychrun fits into this category as well, that Kevyn Adams is actually more comfortable acquiring. Yes, it's 2 years. You're going to have to pay him, but if the cost of getting him in a trade is right, it fits perfectly. You're not going to have to pay him $9 million a year. They got more money to play with the next two. Kyle Okposo is going to be coming off the salary cap this summer. His $6 million a year contract expires. Of course, I expect Kyle Okposo to come back, but it would be at a far lesser number. So they can certainly afford someone like Brock Besser. Sorry, pardon me. But they're not going to give up players like Matt Savoy or Yuri Kulik for someone along those lines. I think that, Kevyn Adams has said this all along. He wants to build this from within. We saw it with the Cozens contract. We saw it with the Tage Thompson contract. He wants to first see how many of these guys are going to earn those types of long-term deals with the Sabres before maybe going out and spending on someone from the outside. I'm not saying it's an impossible feat here, but when you're talking about Brock Besser, for example, he's somebody you're going to have to pay in a couple of years. It's going to be, if all things go well, it's going to be expensive in addition to the prospects, draft picks, what have you, that you're giving up in a trade. So Freddie, a really interesting player. I'm with you there that I think he'd fit well, the age, the contract. It's a matter of what you give up. And, when it comes to the Sabres, I keep coming back to the idea that maybe they're more likely to do a trade like that in the summer when your costs are a lot lower. But they do have a few wild cards on their side, which leads me to my next question from Dave Robinson. Dave, thank you for this one. It's a really smart one. It's one that I keep getting as we're getting closer to the deadline. What's the potential trade value of Sabres prospects Erik-Portillo and Ryan Johnson? For those of you who maybe aren't as familiar, Portillo is the goalie at the University of Michigan. He's made it pretty clear, his agent as well, that they are intending on exploring unrestricted free agency this summer. So Erik-Portillo, the goalie from Michigan, do not expect him to sign with the Sabres, whereas Ryan Johnson, a senior at the University of Minnesota, talented puck-moving defenseman, fits the Sabres system very well, is undecided. Johnson, whose dad, Craig, played in the NHL, was part of that big Wayne Gretzky trade that sent Gretzky to St. Louis. Has taken some significant strides throughout his career with the Gophers. I saw Ryan Johnson play a few weeks back against Michigan State. You could tell he has gotten so much better, just from all the details in his game. He's still a guy that would end up going to Rochester if he signs with the Sabres. There's some uncertainty here. I don't think if we get to April, I don't expect a decision here from the Sabres on the Ryan Johnson front, but until the spring. But if we get to April and Ryan Johnson, he's not signing, the Sabres are far more likely to just let him walk because they get a compensatory draft pick if Ryan Johnson signs elsewhere. Whereas Erik-Portillo, since he was a second-round pick, they do not get the same compensation. Portillo would walk without the Sabres getting anything in return. So the big question here is, what can they get for Erik-Portillo? That is the one of the two that I see them actually trading in some way, shape, or form. A comparable you can look at is Jack McBain, a college. He was going to hit college free, become a college free agent, ended up getting traded from Minnesota to Arizona for a second-round draft pick. With a player like McBain, of course, he can go right into your lineup. He's a forward. Goaltending is very, very valuable, though. And you look at a team like the Seattle Kraken, who, of course, employ former Sabres general manager Jason Botterill. Kraken don't have a goalie Portillo's age who's approaching the NHL who could really help them on the NHL roster in the near future. They've drafted a guy or two, if I'm not mistaken. I know they drafted at least one. They're going to have to wait a few years for him, though. They get Portillo in a trade. He's somebody who can possibly help them as soon as next season. So there is definitely value there. And, rather than putting it up to a flip of the coin in free agency in a lot of ways, they could get Portillo under contract now. There's a relationship there. I don't have any information to directly link the Seattle Kraken with Portillo, although I will mention that Jeff Merrick from Sportsnet had reported that Portillo and Seattle were actually a thing in the summer at the NHL draft. The Sabres and the Kraken reportedly spoke about Portillo's rights there. So I think you can expect something in return, Dave. You really could. I don't know what that is exactly. Maybe you bundle Portillo and a draft pick to make a deadline move. It is one that I would suspect gets done before the deadline as opposed to the summer as you're approaching unrestricted free agency. So the team that acquires Portillo's rights, they have time to, if they need to establish a real relationship, they can. They can get their development coaches out to Michigan. They could really start hitting the pavement and starting to get the wheels turning on a contract negotiation. And we are going to move on to the next one. Thank you, Dave. That is a good one. Guys, if you ever have any questions or follow-ups on any of these matters, feel free. Twitter, email. I'm going to go with David Capella. David, this was your Twitter handle. I do not know if this is your actual name, but thank you so much for the question. Who will be the next forward from the Sabres to receive a long-term extension? Dave, look at the pending restricted free agents for next summer. Now that Thompson and Cozens are under contract, the Sabres have some runway here to get some deals done and really evaluate who in this group is going to be the next in line for this type of contract. Now, I wouldn't think that a 7-year deal is going to be on the table for this next group that we're referring to, just based on the timing of when their deal is expiring, what they've done so far in the league. This can change, of course. There's a lot of time between now and then, but Peyton Krebs would be my pick. Now, Krebs is a restricted free agent in the summer of 24. He is really coming to his own, skating next to Kyle Okposo and Zemgus Girgensons we'll call it the fourth line, although their ice time has been higher than that of a fourth line in recent games. Krebs is a former first-round pick. Well, I hate that phrase. He's not former, but he was a first-round pick, acquired in the Jack Eichel deal. He has really established himself as a long-term member of this team. I do expect that Jack Quinn and J.J. Paterka will be in line to get another contract, of course. It's just that Krebs expires before theirs. I really see an uptick in offensive production for him not only as we go into the second half of this season, but next season, as he earns more ice time, responsibility, and we start to see the skill that he showcased in junior at the NHL level. Maybe that's a bridge contract. That would seem to be much more realistic at this stage. Then again, he comes out, he scores 20 goals next season, and he's unquestionably their third-line center. Kevyn Adams is going to move quickly to get his top 3 centers under contract. He's already got Thompson and Cozens. Why not add Krebs to the fold? And we are going to wrap this up for the week. I'm trying to keep these as short as possible, and I've already gone too long. So what are the Billsy Face, another Twitter handle, thank you for this question. What are the best examples of a team locking up young core players to get value to go on a run? We've seen it throughout the league here, Billsy. Tampa Bay has gotten some guys under contract at a lower rate. Really, this goes back to a trend that we're seeing across the league. Look at what the New Jersey Devils did with Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. They paid those guys sooner than what was traditionally expected for high draft choices. At first, you're overpaying a little bit for what the production might be. In the end, it is a massive cost savings. Somebody like Jack Hughes could end up earning $10, $11, $12 million if you pay him a few years from now, as opposed to the, I think, 8.5 that he's getting as of today on a long-term deal. That is good business. It gives you not only clarity with your long-term salary cap, but you got your top 2 centers locked down long-term. The Sabres are paying... I did quick research on this. There are 17 teams in the league that have signed their number 1 and number 2 centers to long-term deals, and the Sabres are ranking 14th in the amount of money they are spending, which is going to help them in terms of signing Rasmus-Dahlin. And I think the model that every team goes for with building their salary cap and how they're signing players is the Boston Bruins. Look at Brad Marchand's last contract. He's only making $6 million a year. Patrice Bergeron, before his expired, was at a reasonable cost. That's not going to last long in Boston with David Pastrnak, but you need to get guys on these deals in a salary cap age to make the numbers work. So you're not losing one of your core players, after that, not only after the rookie deal expires, but, if you do a bridge contract. We saw that ended with Sam Reinhart. I'm going to cap this off with a question that I received from several people is, what does Rasmus Dahlin's next contract look like? A few comparables here. And Adam Fox and Cale Makar, around $9 million is what you might be expecting. There are 10 defensemen in the league that are making at least counting at least $9 million against their team's salary cap per season. You could easily expect Dahlin to get into that number, and really it's going to be a matter of, does he go for as much money as he can get? Does he get a deal that really allows salary cap flexibility here to where you can spend at other positions? Remember, Owen Power is going to cost a lot of money. The Sabres are going to want to get that deal done sooner than later because the cost is going to continue to keep going up based on his potential. The workload, the responsibility, and the offense production is going to follow all of the above. So Dahlin, not a restricted free agent until the summer of 2024. He's only counting $6 million against the cap this season and next. But the Sabres are going to enjoy that while it lasts because it won't much longer. Just to get the numbers for you on Makar, he got 6 years times 9. Adam Fox from the New York Rangers got 7 times 9.5. About what you could expect. If it gets up to 10, we'll see, but I would think the Sabres are going to definitely try to get him in that 7-year range to coincide with these other deals. Now, we'll see where it all stands. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. This is Lance Lysowski from the Buffalo News. Have a great day.